And we are live, guys. Welcome, women of high value. Welcome to this channel. We're going to talk about how to balance between masculine energy and feminine energy in teenage girls. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you any, scientific, all that stuff, but I'm going to just share my views and opinions, and then you can take it or leave it. Just from my experience, what I've seen is that women who tend to be more feminine, they tend to be happier all around. They tend to smile more. They tend to have normal weight levels. They tend to just, in general, they're just happier. While women who move towards more masculine energy, and they have excessive development of testosterone in their bodies, they tend to just simply have a harder time with accepting their current circumstances. Now, in some ways, that's good, but in other ways, it's very bad because it puts too much strain on their bodies, because they heavily put the burden on their shoulders when it should really be on the men. And because of that, it's kind of like an ugly cycle that starts happening, because women then discipline themselves and force themselves to do things that they don't want to do. And when that happens, they end up developing more testosterone and more manly features and more, basically, features that would allow them to handle more and more burden. But that in turn makes them more and more masculine, which makes them more and more burdened. So it's kind of like a very dangerous cycle that has like the kind of like an exponential growth curve. And it's important to understand that men are the ones who are supposed to have massive amounts of testosterone. In a normal man, men have 10 times, sometimes 15 times, sometimes 20 times more testosterone levels than women. How they should, because that allows men to be able to handle the burdens. In fact, in men, it's proven that testosterone levels, that are normal and that are that high above that of a woman, it motivates men. Like, men love burdens. They love being able to know that, man, that's a challenge over there. I want to go and grab it and I want to handle it. Men love problems. Now, women have a different mindset. They have different bodies. They have a different reproductive system. Everything's different. Very often people compare men and women as if they're the same. They're not. Yes, they have a brain, but what's happening in the brain very often is quite different than that of each other. And that's simply because of the reproductive systems that we have that produce different chemicals in our brain. And those chemicals then produce the emotions. And in women, they're more intense emotions. And in men, it's less emotion. Unless we start switching the roles around. If you notice, boys are becoming more feminine and women are becoming more and more masculine. And what happens is that testosterone levels in men decrease and decrease and decrease until they're pretty much women. And their estrogen levels increase. And then in women these days, because they're taking upon themselves the world and they want to conquer this and they want to do politics and they want to do education, they want to get all the best jobs and they want to basically compete in the marketplace, what's going to happen? Their estrogen levels are going to decrease and their testosterone levels are going to massively spike. But they're never going to completely be able to spike at the same levels as men's, because we're differently wired. So no matter what, a very feminine man will always have like almost double the amount as, let me just double check that. I'll put the article that I'm just looking at. Yeah, the most feminine guy will always have like 3 or 4 times more testosterone levels in his body than the most masculine woman. Do you understand? Like, so what happens is that it just becomes warped. And men, unfortunately, become uglier. They're more feminine. They become like uglier to how can I say this? I mean, you see men online and YouTube, and you see men everywhere. Their feminine men are very careful about their outward appearance, like excessively so, right? So they make sure that they're picture perfect in terms of skincare and in terms of what they wear and in terms of their hair, and like they spend a lot of time on that, which is supposed to be a feminine trait. So they're kind of like perfect, but in a way that is not attractive, if that makes sense. Like, a man who sees that, if he's right in his mind, will look and like, yeah, that doesn't look right. And if you're feminine as a woman, you'll agree that that's just how that's how we're built up, that's how we're designed, and that's what's happened over the course of all these generations. Men, for very good reason, have looked at feminine men very skeptically, because it's not what has been our experience in the past. Now, should we be tolerant of other people? Is it their fault that things are happening like that in their lives? No, it's not. It's very often environmental, but at some point in time, we have to acknowledge what is nature and what is principle based and what is actually going to produce much more happiness and, in the long term. Remember, my definition of truth is that which works in the long run and in the big scheme of things. Now, that which works means in some ways it's also synonymous for the ability to do. Because why would you do something if it didn't work? Like, does that make sense? So in terms of the perpetuation of the race, a feminine man doesn't work because he cannot reproduce, he cannot multiply himself, and then because of that, basically nature is rejecting that, which means that this man will not produce a child. So nature stops it right there for gay people. I'm all for it. I'm all for freedom. I don't judge them. I'm just stating the things that I've observed in terms of nature and in terms of what I see in general. And what I also notice is that men who are very feminine very often tend to have mental disorders or emotional instabilities. And they end up taking a bunch of pills, very often hormone pills, to kind of stop their testosterone levels from increasing. And there's a lot of pills going on these days, and I don't recommend it because things should happen naturally. I mean, don't you agree? So in terms of you, if you know this about men, and yes, they're your girlfriends, boys who are girls, and they end up becoming your girlfriends, that's fine. But understand that in terms of you, it's exactly the same. Like, the more you take on the features of a man, the more confused you will be about life, about things in general, and about why guys don't like you, and just in general, life becomes a lot more tricky once you become masculine. You become very opinionated. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong necessarily, but it makes you unhappy. Let's say, for example, you're an opinionated masculine woman. What's going to end up happening is that people are going to continuously fight your stance. They're basically going to say, no, this isn't right. Or they're basically going to do things that you don't like. And because of that, you're like, oh, I'm so upset and I'm so angry. No. That is burdening. Does that make sense? Which, like I said before, reinforces the masculine trait. And the burdening then makes you more unhappy, more confused. And it goes on and on and on until at one point you give up. At one point, fortunately, your testosterone levels, all testosterone levels in women, decrease as they age. So they become less kind of difficult to be around, but at the same time, you can see when women are more masculine. It's just in general. If they're very masculine, you know that there's a lot of issues going on behind the scenes. The more feminine they are, there could be massive issues, but then it will show in the other people around them, and very often in their children. So if the children are very feminine, then that proves that that woman was very burdened and very masculine to begin with. Again, not women's fault. I blame all of this on men. For men not taking responsibility, men not working towards becoming more masculine, taking upon themselves burdens of the world, and basically rescuing women and children. That's the men's job. But they're not doing their job properly, and that's why women have to shoulder the burdens and the issues of life on their own, independently, and you basically work towards feminism and getting the support of the state and the government in making laws that support women, because women want support. But they don't want it from a man, because then it's like they're under oppression or whatever, and all that feminism, jargon that's basically out there today. The point is, how should you balance all of this? Make sure that you do not discipline yourself beyond your capacity. Don't push your limits. Listen to your body. Okay, the most important thing I'm going to say in this video, I'm going to say right now, and that is when it comes to pills. Happy pills. Okay? Hormonal pills. Basically any pills, and I'm talking now not to the old generation. I'm not talking to you 60 plus women or 50 plus women, maybe around 50. But I'm not talking to you who actually have medicinal problems that you need them in order to survive. Now, obviously you would take them and listen to your doctor always. But for you who are in your teenage years, or even before that, and then in your 20s, and in your 30s, you should avoid pills like the plague. I'm serious about this because this is causing so much damage to your body, to your brain. You don't know what's in those small mini pills, and you're just asking, so what are the symptoms? The doctor doesn't know. Very often, if he's a guy, he'll have no idea. He's just gonna have women come to his office and say, I'm having these symptoms, and I'm having these symptoms, and I'm having these symptoms. And then he's prescribing 3 different kind of pills that they need to take. Who knows what's going to cause what and what doesn't cause what? Like, you can't trust these pharmaceutical companies when it comes to happy pills and pills that basically are there to treat your depression. That's the one part. You can't trust it. Number 2, the biggest thing about pills, for me, is that it hides the truth. That is the biggest problem with stimulants or with drugs or with anything that is basically designed to take away symptoms. Take away the visible parts of a problem. Because if you take away the truth, if you take away the actual reaction of what is actually going on, how can you know the truth? How can you know cause and effect? Because if you keep taking these pills, you never know what the cause is for the reason why you need those pills. So you basically are self-sabotaging yourself, because since you don't take care of the root cause, that's going to cause more issues, and it's going to be an exponential growth curve of that cause that needed to be fixed, but you didn't fix it because you took away the symptoms, and now you didn't have to think about it anymore. Like, does that make sense? So if you're growing up in your teenage years and you're depressed, there's a reason why you're depressed. And and getting rid of that depression with pills will only make you more depressed, because now you're dependent upon something that you weren't supposed to be dependent on in the first place. You understand? So that's what I'm talking about on this channel. is about masculinity, femininity, helping you to get the feedback from your body. Listen to your body. Your body is amazing to tell you what is wrong and what is right. If you're depressed, your body's telling you something. You got to figure out why you're depressed. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. There's a cause and effect to everything. There's a science to everything, and it's not solved with pills. This is the Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. I'll see you again tomorrow.